40 days after the government shut down, we appear now to be on a path for it to reopen. And I will tell you, I am stunned that Democrats caved. Because let's be clear, that's what happened here. On Sunday night, 8 Democrats joined 52 Republicans to get to 60 votes on a measure that's sort of a first step to ending the government shutdown. Remember, 60 is the magic number in the Senate because you need 60 votes to end debate on anything and bring it to a final simple majority vote. But they now have 60. Now, whether that 60 holds or not, I guess we'll see. But I am stunned that this was the moment that Democrats decided to give in. Let's talk about how we got here. So the plan and the deal that Democrats took is literally the same deal that John Thune, the Republican Senate Majority Leader, has had on the table for at least 2.5, 3 weeks, which is effectively, we promise that we will have a debate and probably a vote on the extension of the Obamacare subsidies at some point in the future. Okay. There's no guarantee that Republicans are going to vote for it. There's no guarantee it's going to get to 60. There's none of that. It's just, we are promising that we will, in good faith, have a conversation about having a vote. And I can tell you for a fact, John Thune has had that offer on the table for weeks, and Democrats have rejected it. So what happened? Well, it's important to note that this is not, although I think he'll probably get blamed for it, this is not a Chuck Schumer-led deal. Chuck Schumer, a Senate Minority Leader, has taken a lot of flack from the left for, in the spring, siding with Republicans to keep the government open. He was a critical strategist in deciding not to give Republicans the votes this time around. He is not involved in this deal. Who is involved in it? Well, it's a bunch of centrist-ish Democratic senators, most of whom are either not running for re-election or not up for re-election in 2026. So it's Maggie Hassan and Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire. Shaheen is retiring. Dick Durbin of Illinois. Durbin is retiring. Tim Kaine of Virginia. Huge federal workforce, obviously, in Virginia. John Fetterman, Catherine Cortez Masto, and Jackie Rosen of Nevada. Here's what I'll note. Not one of the 8 Democrats who crossed the party aisle to vote for this are up for re-election in 2026 and running. Shaheen and Durbin are both up. They're both retiring. Everybody else, the other 6, are up in either 2028 or 2030. And look, I think that that's meaningful because it is remarkable to me that 6 days after Democrats scored across the board victories, yes, in Democratic leaning states like New Jersey and Virginia, but also in states like Georgia and Pennsylvania, that the party, or at least some of the party, is giving in to Republicans without any real concessions. Again, this deal has been on the table for weeks. Remember, Chuck Schumer was trying to hold out for a guaranteed vote, a guaranteed 1-year extension of the Obamacare subsidies. They didn't get that. Now, Schumer did vote against this deal, but regardless, they didn't get that. They didn't get anything close to it. They got exactly what they would have gotten a month ago. So, you know, the idea that is being pushed, at least by some good government types, well, they're doing it for the good of the country. Well, if it was for the good of the country, if you didn't want SNAP benefits to be cut or totally eliminated from 42 million people, if you didn't want air traffic control delays, if you didn't want, you know, all these other things, federal workers not being paid for 40 days, this could have ended 3+ weeks ago. This is the same deal that has been sitting out there for weeks, and yet they didn't take it. So why did they take it now? I genuinely don't know. The only thing I can think of is that the FAA's decision to cut 10% of flights, cancellations, and delays really started to eat into constituencies that mattered to these folks. But it does not make a ton of sense. They will say again, well, this is the right thing for the country. I don't disagree with that, but we could have done this 3.5 or 4 weeks ago. What will it mean politically? Well, it's a gigantic story politically. So if Democrats were quasi-united last Tuesday behind the idea that sort of we need to be a check on Donald Trump, we need to fight Donald Trump, we need to talk about affordability across the board, 6 days later, the party is deeply divided. So you have its centrist wing represented by a lot of these senators, and you have the more liberal wing of the party. The liberal wing of the party, who I will note are the people who fueled the Democratic gains across the board last Tuesday. The liberal base of the party is, not surprisingly, livid that these 8 Democrats crossed the party aisle and made a deal. They thought, and I think they're right, that they had the political high ground here, that Republicans control everything. Poll after poll shows that, yes, while it's not 80-20 in terms of blame, more people blame Republicans and Donald Trump than Democrats for the shutdown. The Democratic base is very fired up by the shutdown, by the party's willingness to fight. And then with all of those things working for the party, you then have Democrats sort of out of the blue on a Sunday night deciding, okay, this is it. We're going to make a deal, and the shutdown is going to end, we think, by the end of this week. It is baffling to me why they did it now. As I said, if they were going to take this deal, they could have taken it weeks ago. Why now? I guess Republican cynics are saying online, well, the election's over and they got what they wanted, as in they got the Democratic base fired up and they won. Look, government shutdown or not, Democrats were going to win in Virginia, New Jersey, New York City, and California. All of the polling suggested that. There was no real debate here. Did Abigail Spanberger win by a little bit more because the Democratic base was fired up about the shutdown? Probably. Did Mikey Sherrill win by a little bit more? Yeah, but Abigail Spanberger won by 15 and Mikey Sherrill won by 12 and a half. So maybe they win by 8 and 6 or 8 and 5, but they still win relatively easily. So I don't buy that this was just about the election. I guess the pain points got to be too much for these 8 Democrats, but I would say don't let them hide behind the "we're doing it for the good of the country" argument. That could have happened weeks ago. This deal was on the table by John Thune weeks ago. Don't lose sight of that. So the question I think you have to ask is, why fold now? Right? What special change that forced now, November 10th, a folding? It doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense to me. And I think what it will do is blunt at least some of the momentum the Democratic Party had coming out of the elections last Tuesday. I think it will really expose the rift between the kind of left of the party, which wants fighting Donald Trump at all times, do not concede, do not reopen the government. Republicans created this problem and Republicans can fix it. And the more moderate establishment wing of the party, who wants sort of the government to work the way the government should work again. You're much more inclined to compromise. I will note basically all the 2028ers came out and condemned this deal. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, who's effectively sort of the leading 2028 figure right now, just tweeted out one word: pathetic. Most of the people running for the Senate, the Graham Plattners of the world, Mallory McMorrow and Michigans of the world, came out and condemned this deal. This is not going to be a popular deal within the Democratic Party. And again, I'll reiterate the fact that the 2 members who are up in 2026, who were part of these 8 Democrats who crossed over, are retiring, and the other 6 aren't up for re-election until 2028, 2030, tells you everything you need to know about the politics of this. They are bad for Democrats. It is bad for Democrats. I'm stunned that they did it. Anyway, huge moment. I think if everything goes to plan, the House will vote in the middle of the week, and the government will reopen by the end of the week. That's it for me. I ask you to do one thing for me. Hit that subscribe button. I will make sure you get content like this for free every single day. You will help me grow as an independent content creator. Okay, everybody, take care.